I'm Jace. I have sex addiction and I work with a bunch of other people who do too. Is sex addiction curable? That is the question we'll be answering in today's video. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell button so you get alerted when new videos come out. And it's a great way to support the channel as well. You can always, of course, like and share the content if that is your jam. We're going to have a free resource at the end of the video for you as well, so stick around till the end for that. Otherwise, let's dive right into it. Is sex addiction curable? The simple answer is yes, absolutely yes. And the longer is that's the only information you wanted. Yes, it is. If you want a little more information on it, stick around and I'll do a short version of this for you. In general, it has been believed that addiction is not curable. You have probably heard this, once an addict, always an addict, and it's this brain disease, and once you have it forever. That's not really accurate. Now, there are even people of science who will disagree with me. So I know I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm betting that in time, this will be more and more known in the general populace. And with what we know as we're advancing what we know about the brain and how it can heal and how it remains malleable throughout our lives as well. So why was it believed that addiction is incurable? This is according to Jace, okay? This is my theory as I've worked in this field, and of course I've been in it myself. And I've reached levels that I was supposed to never be able to reach with regard to freedom from addiction. So I'm using myself as a guide for this, and my clients are seeing it too. So it's a running theory, and other people in the field are working with it as well. I think the big reason that addiction was deemed incurable in the past is because we were looking at it in a really narrow way. So, for example, and we still do, you hear this, right? Addictions. I have this and this and this and all of these addictions, which isn't a great way to look at it just based on accuracy. Addiction, as we know, if you kick it on this channel, you do any work with me, is a function or kind of a misfunction of the brain that's happening in the same place. It's the same systems of the brain and body that are engaged when we're talking about addiction. Now, there are different things like substances, behaviors, all sorts of stuff that can get played into that wiring, into those systems, and result in compulsion and addiction. So that's why it's looked like there are multiple addictions when really there's addiction and kind of like many paths that can play into that, right? So that being said, let's say you indeed traveled many of those paths. Well, a lot of people just focused on one. And I might get in trouble by saying this, but I think AA was a really big culprit in that, because they said you had the allergy of, this alcohol allergy, you were an alcoholic. You don't even hear addiction in the world when we're talking about alcohol, right? Like you have alcoholism, you don't have alcohol addiction. So it was this idea that it was completely separate. It was this unique thing, right? So if you didn't drink, you were sober and you're in the clear, right? But if you're engaging, if you're walking these other paths that are part of addiction as well, like sex addiction, work, gambling, food, shopping, all sorts of things that play into that reward system, then you weren't actually healing the brain and body of addiction. You just weren't drinking, right? And so it looked like addiction was never being cured, because it's like, oh, I've been sober for 20 years, and yet if I have a drink, I'm like right back in it, which doesn't make any sense unless we realize that the system of addiction was functioning the entire time, just in different ways. So if we are just focusing on the symptoms of addiction, and drinking would be a symptom of addiction, reacting out with sexual behavior would be a symptom of that, viewing pornography, whatever. And of course, we know that addiction itself is a symptom of adverse childhood experiences, of trauma usually. Then Of course it's going to be there forever. If you only dealt with the symptoms of strep throat and you just kept taking, throat lozenges, yeah, then guess what? People are like, well, strep throat's incurable. Well, no, you're not actually dealing with the problem. You're just dealing with the symptoms. So since we've taken this symptomatic recovery approach to addiction, it appears to be incurable. However, when we take a holistic approach to recovery and to healing, and we are actually healing the functions, the systems, the brain and body that are tied into addiction, and we are healing that which led to addiction in the first place. So I'm talking your trauma, I'm talking your adverse childhood experiences, PTSD, all of these things that addiction follows. If we're healing that and we are abstaining eventually from all things, now don't panic, I'll touch on that in a minute, that play into the addiction cycle, and we actually allow the brain and body to heal, then yes, absolutely, it is curable. And you can gain complete freedom from addiction. That's my theory. I'm guinea pigging it myself, and my clients are as well. And I'll be damned, it's working. So, real quick on that little note with ending all things that tie into addiction. Now, one, not all people have the same reaction to all things, right? Like I've done drugs, they never took. That never, did anything for me. It never played a big part in addiction for me. Other people, ooh, watch out. That's the jam, right? For them. And same can be true for other people who maybe have drug addiction, have healthy sexual behavior. That can be true as well, right? So if you do recognize that you're walking these paths like I was, that lead to the brain and body areas of addiction, and you want to be completely free, then yes, in time, we have to stop walking those paths long enough for the brain and body to heal. So for example, personal life, I stopped drinking for over 4 years, and I have drinks now, and it is not like before, and I'm not having these issues like I was before. It's not compulsive. It's not in a harmful way, aside from all the studies coming out that alcohol is just harmful in general. But I'm able to do it in a non-compulsive way because I've been doing my holistic healing work with my past and my present as well. It's not an easy path, believe me. It looks easier to deal with the symptoms, right? I stopped drinking, I'm cured, I'm sober. But if we're not actually dealing with the underlying problem, then we're going to treat symptoms forever until we die, at the very least, right? That to me is actually more work. I'd rather do the heavier lifting up front and then not ever think about it again. Do you all know how often I think about addiction? When I'm doing these videos, like that's about it. So when we do that whole healing, yes, it's harder up front. Yes, it takes more energy up front, but then you're done. Like I'm 33 and I don't think about this stuff anymore, where I have had addiction as part of my life since I was a child. It's up to you how you want to handle it. But yes, addiction is curable. Sex addiction is definitely curable if you're willing to put in the work and the time. If you are interested in learning more about that, that's what I do. That is what we're doing. You can head to jacedowney.com to learn about holistic recovery options that are alternatives to the symptomatic treatments of 12-step. So you can head to jacedowney.com for that. And don't forget, you got that free resource at the end of the video. I don't know why I point over here. That's where your free resource is. But stick around for that. And until I see you next time, remember, when it comes to recovery, you got this. Hello again. I am super psyched to get this resource to you for free. I have taken one of my all-time favorite workshops to give in person and condensed it down to a short online little mini course that you can take at your own convenience right now to learn how to go from powerless to empowered, not just with regard to addiction, but your whole life. It is free. It is available now on my website. Just click the link below to get instant access to that at no cost to you. I'll see you over there.